Language and Composition students. This is Mr. Francavella. This is lesson 28, and it is Rhetorical Strategies. So I have the list of 9 here. You will be referring to these always when you're writing an argument analysis for AP English because they are so present in arguments and essays. What are rhetorical strategies? They are the author's way of arranging information so that it will form a certain mental process on the part of the reader to make you process the data and the information to come to a better understanding. So you employ those in your own writing, and to be aware of them will help you improve your own writing, but for right now we're going to use them for analyzing another person's writing and to recognize them and to be able to write about them. So this is the most common type. I'm going to go through them really quickly, and then I'm going to focus on 4. And this will be more than one video lesson. So we have exemplification is another way of saying this term. That's just providing supporting detail, right, to support an argument, to illustrate a point. Cause-effect. Some impetus leads to some result. So that's all there is to that. You understand that. I wouldn't use these two terms together. They don't mean the same thing. Contrast shows differences. Comparison shows similarities. So just use one or the other if that is what you're doing at the time. If both are involved, fine, combine them together. Division, classification, I'll be going into more deeply in a minute. This is just grouping items into categories. This is breaking a category into its parts. So they're not the same thing, but they're one reverses the other. Process, there are a few types of process. It might seem very simple to you, it sort of is, but we'll learn about 2 types of process. Description provides detail. Narration is a series of events, usually chronological order, but just explaining what happens. Argument, we understand that hopefully. There is a claim that is made in a belief of somebody trying to persuade another person to believe that way, but a claim supported with some evidence or reason. That's the essence of an argument, an enthymeme. And definition, we're going to go into that more deeply too. Just clarifying the meaning of a term, but there is more to it than that. So let's go on to the 4 types that I want to focus on today. The first one is classification and division. So this just says classification up here. Now, when you have this video in front of you, you will have to maybe sometimes pause to read something, but right now I'm just going to go and clarify the term a little more than I just did. So, what is classification? Be aware that you can use this organizational tool all the time when you're analyzing. Analyzing just means breaking things apart into their parts to understand how it works better. Classification is a type of that, all right? It breaks things into its major categories, or it groups things into its major categories, I should have said. It goes from specific to general, right? Right. So it goes from specific to general, and division goes from the whole to its parts. So classification and division. So we will be looking at that. We'll look at an example in a minute. So, just to reiterate, classification basically is just putting items into their categories. So if you're reading through an essay and it gives you many examples, Are all those examples the same type? If they are, then you have one big category, but that's probably not too helpful. You want to probably break it into more defined categories. So you could have a whole list of states, but maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe some of the states are, if it's the Civil War era, Northern Union states or Confederate Southern states. So see how you can break the items up into their categories and to reflect the intent of the author. You want to get into the author's mind when you're writing an argument analysis. So classification is grouping things into categories. So let's look at another type. We'll come back to actually this in a minute. Definition. So I'm not going to flip around right now, I'm just going to explain. Definition, yeah, we know that is the meaning of a word, but already, hopefully this year, you know that there are different types of definition. There's denotative, that is the more dictionary type of definition, or the primary meaning for a culture. Remember, if you remember from A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift, dear, D-E-A-R, to a British person, still today means expensive more than it means anything else, though that culture, that society still does understand that it also can mean cherished or precious, have that more emotional association. So connotations are another type of definition. They are the emotional associations, the more subjective meaning of a word, where denotation is the more objective meaning of a word. So we will be noting that when we look at some examples. And we have classification, division, definition, and we have process analysis. Process. Process can be identified in two different ways. Directive, where you're guiding somebody through the steps of how something works or how to do something. That's called directive process analysis, or directive process. Or it could just be informative, explaining how something works or how something is done, not so much by a step-by-step process. So directive or informative, those are the two types of process organization. And then our final one for today is exemplification. As I said earlier, it's just a way of providing support to clarify ideas. You can give samples, details, refer to persons, refer to events that are the types that support what your claim you're trying to make. So samples, details, persons, typical events. Exemplification can be analogies, anecdotes, like little brief stories. So it's the most common type of organizational method of these rhetorical strategies, as I said before. So now we are going to start to look at some examples, and then we'll probably have to move on to another video to finish this. So here we go with our first example. So here is the passage from a lady, Jane Howard. It's called All Happy Clans Are Alike. You probably have to pause the video and read it, and then I'm going to start to explain or ask you some questions to fill out the answers following. So take a moment and read that, and now we're going to go through it. What is the topic of this passage is your first question that I'm not showing you right there. So it's two classes of friends, right? So that would be your answer. What is the thesis statement? It's right here, right? These new families may consist either of friends of the road or friends of the heart achieved by choice. Friends of the road by chance, met by chance and formed by chance, or friends of the heart achieved by choice. So we see there's two groups. So we're actually classifying, we're putting the types of friends into two groups. All right, so what is the purpose of this passage? To inform, not to persuade or entertain. Actually, what are we really doing? Are we putting things into one group, or breaking the idea of friends into more groups? We're actually engaging in division here. It's breaking the general category of friends into two groups. So it's actually division for number 4. So what are the main subgroups? Friends by chance versus friends by choice. So that's it. It's that simple, right? But I think we learned something here that I said at first it's classification. We have to be careful not to call it that when we're actually breaking something apart into smaller parts. So let's move on to our next type of rhetorical strategy, and that will be definition. But I think I will put that onto the next video. So I'm going to stop right now and then go to the next video.